Ladies and gentlemen, I'm reading a CNBC article. DOJ is getting very close to having the evidence to indict Trump, but shouldn't charge him, ex-Attorney General Bill Barr says. That's 5 hours ago on CNBC The Hill. Barr says DOJ getting very close to having enough evidence to indict Trump 4 hours ago. And if you look at the CNBC article, former Attorney General William Barr said he thinks the Department of Justice is getting very close to having the evidence to indict ex-President Donald Trump. And then he goes on to talk about how Barr said two major issues in the case over these materials, many of which have classified markings, are whether the DOJ can make a case to charge Trump and whether it should. Will the government be able to make out a technical case? Will they have evidence by which that they could indict somebody on, including him? That's the first question. I think they're getting very close to that point, frankly. This is William Barr, who said this yesterday and today. Hit subscribe to this channel right now, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to zoom past 200,000 subs this month. And I believe this month, we're very close. And hit subscribe to H.A. Goodman's other channel, the Stock Market Crash channel. We're over 20,000 subs on H.A. Goodman's other channel. Thank you so very much. And if you want to give a super thanks, please do so. If you want to support my work long-term on Patreon, please do so. I won't have a live stream tonight, but I'll have a live stream tomorrow evening. Ladies and gentlemen, the important thing to remember pertaining to this is that they despise Trump and they have only contempt for Donald Trump. The rule of law doesn't apply to Democrats. The rule of law only applies to Trump. When Hillary had servers siphoning classified data outside of the United States government that could have easily been and almost certainly was infiltrated and hacked by the entire world. Comey said, although there's violations of the statutes pertaining to the handling of classified data, no reasonable prosecutor would indict. There is no rebuttal. There's no rebuttal. You can read that. That's like kryptonite for anyone at the Atlantic or the Washington Post or New York Times or the Democratic National Committee. They're all the same, pretty much the same public relations entity. They all work for one political party. They have the same vantage point all the time that always just is coincides with Democratic Party talking points. Everybody from Jimmy Kimmel, MSNBC, CNN, Late Night Jimmy Kimmel, MSNBC, CNN, the Washington Post, the New York Times, Atlantic, Vanity Fair, Esquire, Vice, BuzzFeed, Daily Beast, they have the same. Los Angeles Times, AZ, Arizona Republic, they have the same vantage point. New Yorker, New York Magazine, it's the same article all the time. Well, Clinton's servers were for convenience, and Comey couldn't find intent, but Trump had classified data, and he shouldn't have had that information. Well, Clinton shouldn't have had that either. What are we talking about now, the rule of law? Or are we talking about Democrats, outgoing Democrats, accusing an incoming Republican of colluding with another country and finding out there was zero evidence to indict anyone, and then 6 years later going after a former president, Democrats when they're in power back again, going after a former president, Republican, or Trump Republican, let's say, because he's not a traditional Republican, trying to indict him, utilizing the United States government against their political rivals, as Hunter takes photos of himself with video. You couldn't even make Hunter's story up. With clear violations of the law, graft and bribery schemes in his emails published by the Daily Mail and the New York Post. And the only rebuttal is you can't prove anything. Well, you can't prove anything with Trump. That you don't need to prove something to indict. You can just indict and then you have to convict. He's not going to get convicted. I think that almost certainly he'll get indicted. They have nothing to run on. They live. You have to understand, ladies and gentlemen, they live. And this is why you should subscribe to this channel, because I'm going to give you the analysis of who these people are. They live to dislike Trump. Do you understand? There are certain people, millions of people, who are lifelong, wonderful, morally superior, highly educated liberal Democrats who live. It is their lifeblood. It's their life force. It's their soul, their spirit. They live to just dislike, obsess over Trump, the contempt and disdain they have for him. The orange menace is hotter than 1,000 suns and keeps getting warmer and hotter and more intense. They need to indict Trump. And you might say, well, then what's the point? Why are you always bringing up these segments? Like, well, because you have to, like, they're capable of anything. Don't think they accused an innocent man based on James Clapper's assessment. When they say, you talk about like writers of the Washington Post, they'll never admit, for example, that there was not a shred of evidence pertaining to Trump-Russia. The egg on their face is now, like, it's not just the Washington Post, CNN. They wipe off egg on their face within a matter of seconds, and it's pristine and wonderful again. So they'll never admit that they were wrong on a number of things. They'll never admit that the Mueller probe was a completely partisan endeavor. Jeff Sessions was bullied into removing himself from the Mueller probe because Al Franken accused him of perjury because he spoke to Sergei Kislyak. This is where we were at. We learned nothing from the McCarthy era. The Democrats of 2016 to today are McCarthy era Red Scare, facsimiles. They're just carbon copies of McCarthy era madness politicians, Joseph McCarthy. And so you look, ladies and gentlemen, and it's like, what have they done for the past 6 years? They have not accepted Trump defeating Clinton. They never once. You should see what you could go ahead and look up what Madonna said. What did Madonna say? The day that during his inauguration, what did she say? What did Madonna say during in the protest during Trump's inauguration? Okay, from that day, which was, by the way, would be viewed today if a Trump Republican said something like that as an offense worthy of jail time, prison time, immediately. Okay, look up what Madonna said, what she wanted to do to the White House. Okay. This was the first day he was inaugurated. He had not even really stepped into the Oval Office yet, and Madonna wanted to do something to the Oval Office. Then you have, what's her name? The comedian with a severed Trump head. Okay, then these are the people who pontificate and preach about morality and civility. It's like you have. And then they say, oh, there's a Hunter industrial complex. Like, not really. One great movie. It's a fantastic movie, I heard. Okay. You have, how much money do you think media and Democrats have raised off of fueling contempt and disdain for Trump? But the point is they have to indict him because politically they have nothing there. That's what I'm trying to tell my viewers. Don't be surprised when it happens after midterms or before midterms or whenever it happens. In 2023, Biden's going to get impeached. In 2023, he's going to get impeached, ladies and gentlemen. And then you're going to have not only that, before the impeachment, you'll have numerous probes in addition to the Durham probe special counsel. So you'll have the Durham probe special counsel. He'll get the conviction of the steel subsource in October. That's going to undermine any attempt at going after Trump, but they'll still do it. They don't really care. Here's the thing. Don't think that there are any guardrails in terms of civility or logic or reason pertaining to their endless quest. He's the white whale of Democratic politics. He's the orange whale. Trump is like, they've obsessed over him. They've created something that isn't who he is. When he says something, it means a million other different things. When Biden says something, well, Trump is worse, even though what Biden says is infinitely worse. Democrats get away with a lot worse in terms of political chaos, $1 to $2 billion in property damage, and I agree with the cause of why people demonstrated peacefully. I do agree with the cause. $1 to $2 billion in property damage. CNN says fiery but peaceful with the building in flames behind the journalist. You think they would do that if it was protests or demonstrations linked to conservatives? No, they wouldn't. And bringing up the cause, it doesn't refute or is not a rebuttal to anything I just said. There is no cause, even though I support the cause of why people demonstrated 2 years ago in the summer. There is no cause worthy of $1 to $2 billion in property damage. Democrats looked and media allowed that to take place without the typical hysterical apoplectic reaction because it benefited them. It helped kick Trump out of office. That's why they allowed, and they get away with it. When the media wants to focus on a deranged right-wing or conservative, they'll focus everything on that conservative. When media wants to cover up churches getting destroyed throughout this country, Christian and religious buildings, or buildings associated with Christian groups getting completely vandalized and destroyed. They will, after Dobbs, this is after the Dobbs decision, how many buildings and how many churches were destroyed, okay, throughout this country. Okay, you can just look back, go and wear a Make America Great Again hat. See what happens. They have conditioned people to say, well, chaos and bullying is okay if it's towards Republicans because they're the real bullies. But the Trump Republicans don't care who you vote for. The Trump Republicans don't disown friends and family. It's the apoplectic, hysterical, morally superior, highly educated liberals who usually, not always, but oftentimes, maybe in most cases, disown friends and family. I know people who voted for Biden. A great many Biden voters don't know anyone who voted for Trump. They don't want to know anyone because they think it like, it's like impure, or like, their friends will look down upon them, or they'll watch CNN or read the New York Times. They've never been into politics a day in their life, but all their friends are saying the same things. And Trump is above the law, and Republicans are extreme, and Trump is this, and Trump is that, and they don't realize that there was only a high to moderate confidence assessment by the DHS and ODNI. They've never read the intel reports. They don't know the Steele dossier was purchased by Clinton. They don't know that Trump did nothing in terms of in New York. The investigation showed nothing. They don't realize that the United States government is leveled against one man. They don't care. Whenever they do realize that, they don't care. They just despise Trump. They think that he's the embodiment of all evil. But we had record highs in household median income and record lows in poverty under Trump in 2019. And so they don't care. Like, you vote for Trump because his economic policies worked. And his foreign policy is infinitely better than what you have. Only failures with Biden, with the invasion in Europe, and also the invasion and then the recession we're experiencing now. Food prices are going through the roof. Oil prices are going back up. He's flooding strategic petroleum reserves after saying he was going to save the planet and take on the oil and gas industry. Then they sued him. Now environmental groups are suing him. He has no economic policy. The policies are terrible. Look at the real wages, down 4.4%. But again, ladies and gentlemen, it's they have to indict him because they have nothing to run on. Their lifeblood is contempt and disdain for Trump. So they're not going to convict a former president. You can't get a conviction because there's no precedent. And the Presidential Records Act doesn't list an actual enforcement mechanism. So good luck trying to enforce that and saying, oh, well, you know what? This applies to all Americans. Well, he's a former president. Not all Americans get the same security clearance, which is the highest there is. And not all Americans are negotiating for a year with the National Archives and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. They knew he had those documents in June. So to say that this was like big risk to national security, they knew in June, and all they said was, here, go ahead and here's another lock. Go ahead and use that for the storage facility. So they have nothing to convict him on, but they could very well indict him on a technicality, and they will. I think almost certainly they will, not because they have a case. Imagine the unbelievable hysteria that's and media buzz and the endless fundraising they can get from indicting Trump. It won't work. It'll make him more popular. He'll get he'll get more fundraising, and they'll lose in the polls to an indicted Trump. And so it's not going to work out for them. And then Trump, when he's in office, hopefully he gets back into office, payback is you know what. So it's not going to work out for them, but it's the only option they really have. Give me your thoughts below. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. I'll be back in a